Hi, I'm Rena, owner and designer at the Rustic Horseshoe. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the vest, particularly for my keen canine Pudgy plushie, but it will also fit my charismatic cat and my sluggish sloth and some of the other Pudgy plushies. You can get creative with it, you can make it decorative, or you can make it like a service dog, like the police canine, the firefighter, or the service dog. The possibilities are endless, and you can do it obviously however you'd like. You can have the decorative ribbon or reflective ribbon, no ribbon at all. So you decide what you'd like to do. It's best. These are made out of duck canvas. You can make it out of quality cotton or a variety of other fabrics, whatever you see fit to make. But also know that the way that it fits the dog or any of the Pudgy plushies, because of the head and the wideness, well, this particular does go to the wideness of the arms, but the way that it's designed to fit so that it does look more like a canine service vest and also will work around the plushie itself is it Velcros completely apart. So understand how that fits, and then to put it on, you can Velcro one side together. Slide it through the wide armhole, which is because they have wide arms, but also again so that this vest looks sort of like a canine service vest to best fit obviously the shape of the dog here. And then just Velcro it, bring it around, center it, and Velcro it back. This was designed to fit the animals made with minky. They tend to stretch out a little bit more than the ones made of cotton, for example. You might need to make some slight adjustments to the closure and how it fits if you're using cotton to make your animal, not your vest, but if your animal is made out of cotton or something else that isn't quite, doesn't quite stuff out as much as the minky, you might need to adjust the vest to go a little bit smaller. All right, let's grab what we need and let's get started. All right, we're going to use the templates as reference for ribbon placement on the vests. So you'll need to have all your panels cut out. So you have your 2 front panels for one side and your 1 back panel, and then your 2 front panels and back panel for the opposite side. So this vest can be sort of reversible, but also not the way that the Velcro goes. But if you're going to add the ribbon, it'll look something like this. And you'll want to cut your ribbon using the templates. And this is so that you get the right angles and length, of course, but mostly so you get that right angle. So you want to, especially right here, kind of cut so that it fits the angle that's shown on the pattern, and it can be a little longer than what's there on the pattern for overlapping. You want to make sure that you're cutting, for the front panel, you're going to be cutting 2 of each of these and making sure that they're reversed to each other. And if you're not going to add ribbon, obviously just skip this step. Easy peasy. And you can also choose to add ribbon to just the top or just the bottom or just the front or just the back. This is your vest. You can make it how you want. So the back panel, because it is slightly different shaped, doesn't have quite as many angles that are needed for it. So you just have the one ribbon across the bottom, 1 across the top on each half. The fabric is cut on a fold, but the ribbon is not due to the angle that is done. So you cut 2 separate pieces for each, 1 for each half, if that makes sense. So you line those up. You use the pattern template to help you kind of see where it lines up and get the angle. You're going to overlap the center one, and you can have it hang over the edge. That's okay. It gives you more ribbon to work with if you cut a little longer, and you can trim that later, and that sews into the seam. Now if you want to go straight across the back, you certainly can, and you can just cut 1 piece of ribbon just like that if you don't want it to follow the angle of the bottom. If you want it to follow the angle of the bottom, then you're going to cut the 2 separate pieces of ribbon to create that ribbon across the bottom. So your choice. Once you have it in place, pin it. And right here at the center, I do have them slightly overlapping each other. Okay, do the same thing at the top. Make sure you have the right angles, the ribbons in the right place. Okay, so this is the back, and you're going to top stitch along the edge, and then I do a zigzag stitch over the center part. You can do 2 straight stitches on each side to hold it. You can decide how you want that to look. And when I'm stitching this, I'm stitching probably even a little smaller than 1/8 of an inch. It's just right along the edge. And with this particular ribbon, I'm stitching just kind of above that other stitch it has. And so this is another option. You can just do straight stitches down the center to hold those ribbons in place. On these particular ones, I folded it under and did a straight stitch on top. And that's how I first did it. And so that's certainly an option. How I'm doing it here is a zigzag. Kind of more of the satin stitch zigzag, that tight zigzag. Okay. And then top stitch around. Looks something like this. And now we're going to move to the front, and you're going to do the ribbon on the front pieces before you sew the 2 panels together. Okay, it looks something like this. You use the template to help you line up the ribbon how I have it designed, or you can put it on however you'd like. And then just top stitch those in place. And here on the front panel, because it has a center seam, those center ribbon, or the ribbons where they meet in the center, are just going to be sewn into the seam. You don't have to worry about zigzagging across them or anything like that. And you can choose to just put ribbon on what's going to be one side of your vest, or you can have ribbon on both sides of your vest, but we're working front or the panels at a time. Okay, so now we have our 2 front panels, and we have it finished on the back panel, and this is all just for one side of the vest. You're going to line them up right there on the center seam for the vest on the front panel. Make sure your ribbon, if you put it on there, is lined up so that it'll cross the seam properly. Pin it in place, and we're going to just sew using a 1/4 inch seam allowance just on that front center seam. Okay, clip the curve. It's not a really big curve, but it just helps things lay a little bit better. Open that up, and you can leave it at this point. I'm going to iron that center seam, and then I'm going to top stitch on both sides of the center seam just to give it more detail. Completely optional. So I've ironed it open, the seam allowance on the back open. You can see how it looks on the front. And now I'm going to top stitch right next to the seam on each side. Okay, see, it looks just like that. Again, completely optional. It just gives a more crisp and more defined look. Okay, so there's one front panel. If you want to add a patch and not sew through both of your front panels, because you'll have the front and the back front panel, you can sew that on now, but it'll make it more difficult to turn because that patch is kind of thick. So what I did here with the firefighter patch is I assembled my front panels first and then I sewed it on through both panels. So take the other set of front panels. If you want to add the ribbon or just sew them together. And you're doing it just like we did with the other one, without the ribbon or with it. Okay, gonna iron the So this is the other front panel, because you will have two completed front panels, one for the outside, one for the inside. So place your front panels right sides together. Line up the center seams and then pin in place, and pin all the edges around in place. We're going to leave space for an opening along here on the bottom edge. Finish pinning there. Okay, so we're going to leave this opening here and sew all the way 1/4 inch seam allowance and leave just that section open at the bottom for turning. Another option that you could do is on what you're going to have be the inside panel of your front panels is leave an opening in the center seam so that you're turning it through the center seam on what will be the inside of the vest, and then you can ladder stitch that closed after you turn it right side out, and then that's on the center inside rather than on the exposed bottom side. Stop your stitch, clip your curves. You especially want to clip the corner edges, helps reduce the bulk. And then you want to definitely clip into the stitch as far as you can where it turns basically kind of like the armpit area where you have that sharp corner. Then clip around the rest of the curves. You don't necessarily have to notch it like I'm doing here. Doing just a straight clip will also work. It just reduces some of the bulk in the seam. Okay, so this is your front panel inside out, and we're going to turn it through that opening at the bottom, or if you left the opening in the seam. You can use chopstick or forceps to help you turn this out. And then as you're turning it out, use your finger if you're using your hands, or the chopstick to kind of push the seams out from the inside to make sure you get them pushed out as smooth as you can. We'll be ironing it, and you just want to make sure your seams are completely pressed out. So it looks something like this. Then we're going to turn the fabric on the opening inward, and it kind of naturally turns at the 1/4 inch because of the seam on both sides, but it is slightly bit of a curve, so you do need to take your time and make sure you're turning it in and being mindful that you're keeping the integrity of that curve so you don't end up with kind of a weird flat spot or misshapen spot. And just pin that in place to help hold it, especially since it's on a curve. Then iron it to help make the seams crisp, and top stitch it to finish them off and close the opening. And top stitching is just done with like an 1/8 inch seam allowance. It's real small. And I notice here I didn't quite get my seam all the way pushed out, so I'm pulling it out just to kind of make it look a little more proper and even on both sides. So you can kind of do that too, if you need to. Alright, and here's a completed front panel, front and back, inside, outside, however you want to look at it, of the front panel. Now this is where I would sew the patch in place, because again, I don't do it beforehand, it just makes it more bulky for turning. We're going to add the Velcro as marked on the pattern, and I use a double-sided ultra thin Velcro that's for doll clothes. But you can use whatever Velcro you have, and that will work just fine as well, as long as it's sewable. So use the guide, cut it to the proper length there. Then you can see on this finished one, you want to make sure your Velcro is on what will be the inside, so that these straps go to the back. So you don't have, and this is what makes it a little odd for making it a reversible vest, because when you reverse it, those straps from the back are on top of the front ones coming forward, instead of the front ones on top of the back ones going backwards, which looks more smooth and complete. So make sure you're sewing it in the places directed on the template. Just sew around the edges of the Velcro. Make sure on one side you have the hook side up, and on one side you have the, actually no, I'm sorry, this connects to the back. So both sides will have either the hook or the loop, and then the back panel will have the opposite of whatever you don't have faced up on the front side. So sew your patch on if you're doing that this way. Do that now. I know I mentioned it earlier. You could do it before the Velcro or after the Velcro. It really doesn't matter. It works the same either way. All right, so put your inside and outside back panels together. Put them right sides together and pin in place. We're going to sew around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and leave the bottom edge open where it says to leave open. Clip your curves and the corners. And this is what your inside out back panel should look like. And you have the opening here, and we're going to turn it right side out. Again, you can use your forceps chopstick to help you with this process, and make sure you're pressing those seams out from the inside to get them pressed fully out. Okay. Once it's all turned right side out, turn in the opening toward the inside. Again, being mindful of the curve. Try to help it follow the same curve at the 1/4 inch. Turn it in, pin it in place. And then you can iron it. I generally iron it before I top stitch it, and then top stitch. And there's your back panel, what will be the inside and what will be the outside of the vest. Now we need to add the Velcro to this. And again, be mindful of what you're wanting to be generally the outside of your vest, if you are making it kind of reversible. And if it's not reversible at all, make sure that you have what's the inside, or what's going to be facing the outside, in proper orientation, so you're putting the Velcro on correctly. In this case, the Velcro will go on the back panel. The Velcro goes on what will be the outside panel. On the front, the Velcro went on what will be the inside of the panel, so that these straps go to the back at the neck and the sides instead of coming to the front, if that makes any sense. That's where they overlap too. Okay, so you can use the pattern template to cut your Velcro to the size it needs and to help guide you on placement. Make sure you have the opposite, the hook or the loop, face up for what it's going to attach to the front panel. So if I'm making the daisy part the outside of my vest, I have the Velcro in these proper orientations, as you can kind of see here. And it all lines up like that, and you've got a vest. And now you can switch it around, and it's just going to have the effect of bringing those straps to facing forward instead of going to the back. Okay, and then put it on your dog. The vest is designed for a dog that's made out of, or it works on charismatic cat, whatever, out of minky, so it has a little bit more of a stretch. So it is a little wider, so the vest might fit a little looser on a dog made out of cotton, for example. But there's your vest.